Welcome to At the Coolidge. This week we're talking about a new documentary by Nanette Burstein called American Teen, and I'm speaking with David Wildman, who is an author, a songwriter, a screenwriter, movie critic for The Dig and other things, many credentials. And this will be an interesting discussion because I absolutely loved American Teen, and I don't think you liked it as much as I did.
No, I didn't like it at all.
Okay. What it is it's a documentary, a very constructed documentary about focusing on four teenagers in high school. And it constructs these profiles of each of them.
Right. Well, that's my problem.
Right.
Is the idea of a constructed documentary.
Right.
I think that this I think that this film just sets things up and makes it look like there's spontaneous things happening, and they aren't. They can't be.
They can't be.
These people are all wearing wires, for one thing. There's certain scenes where you see people lean over and you see that they've got battery packs on.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So they're aware of everything that they're doing is being recorded.
And there is a really interesting performative element of sort of media-savvy teenagers in high school knowing that their lives are going to be turned into works of documentary art for the MTV generation. And
right.
that makes some people recoil. Why I liked it, I'm banging my mic here, smash, is that it was so well done as a work of documentary art. It was so nicely put together with the right moments that it almost feels like a fiction film. And so that border of what's fiction and what's nonfiction, I think is really called into question by this movie, but I found the profiles absolutely compelling and charming and filled with all kinds of emotion and interesting to me.
Yeah, and that's true. And I mean, I think this should be a controversial film in that sense because there's something worth watching there. Mm-hmm. There definitely is. My argument is with the idea of having to make a documentary that is so sensational. I feel that it's kind of expected of documentaries these days.
Well, how sensational in what way? We're only talking about high school kids. There's the nerd, the athlete, the artist, and there's one other prototype, the stud.
Right. I'm talking about the structure.
Okay.
I'm talking about throwing in animated sequences that look like, you know, the Brothers Quay. You know, just for mood. You know, to add a certain mood to the story, yes. But I feel that it helps to fictionalize what's going on, and I really want to believe that these events are really happening.
So when you see animation, it moves you out of that possible belief that this could ever be a real slice of life.
Well, it takes me into a place where this is obviously not real, mm-hmm. and I want to believe that it's real. Like for instance, the animation aside, there's a scene where this kid who's the ultimate nerd, okay, he says he's, you know, the one sock looking for his mate, which is, you know.
Right, and he says all these very camera-ready things, and he's got terrible skin, and he looks like Beavis or Butthead.
These are things that kids say, that's
mm-hmm.
fine. But
mm-hmm.
then he goes to this girl's house with, you know, a rose or whatever, and he asks her out on a date. Now, she's not going to say no because there's a camera crew behind him, you know? And you just cannot discount that. Mm-hmm. You can't say this is real, honest situation here. The girl is obviously going to go with him. For all we know, the whole thing was set up. You know, this guy needed to have a girlfriend, so they got him a girlfriend. What I would like to see, mm-hmm. I would like to see behind the scenes of making this movie. In fact, I'd like to see them make a movie of making this movie. Because
but there are 1,000 hours of footage, 1,000 hours.
Yeah, but I'm sure there's plenty of footage that's much more, you know, real.
Right. So your problem essentially is the ethics of documentary filmmaking.
Yes.
Okay. And if I let that go, and you obviously cannot let that go.
No, and I had the same problem with War Dance. Okay. Mm-hmm. War Dance. There was no way that could have been spontaneous events. Did you see War Dance?
Yeah, and we reviewed it here actually at the show. And then that question of sort of the performance of another culture for the privilege of the white audience over here to feel bad or to feel good or to feel empowered.
Right.
And was a real issue.
I mean, there's that final scene where they're doing, you know, their big tribal dance on the stage with 5 camera angles. You can't, and not in one of those camera angles do you see another camera, which means they had to have done it more than once.
Well, I can see, and I can see the ethical problems when you're in Uganda with children who are refugees and their families have been killed. And it's shot by white filmmakers. There's an ethical problem, but this is just high school teenagers. It's essentially a fiction film about high school. And the reason I can let the ethics go is because I'm fascinated by how they could construct in such a remarkable way reaction shots when they're not, couldn't possibly be reaction shots. People are sitting in cafeterias looking around, and then we are privileged to see what we think they must be looking at.
Right.
Well, the whole thing is constructed.
Right, obviously. Someone gets a phone call and we hear that phone call.
Or we see the text message.
The text message comes up on the screen.
Right.
You know, to me, that just takes me out of the reality of the story, and I want to believe that a documentary of what kids are experiencing in high school is real.
Okay, but so you've defined what a documentary needs to be.
Yeah.
I'm saying a documentary can move to many other places, and one of the places that it's moving is to this kind of reality TV place, and that there's a generation that doesn't understand that. Now, should they have to know that a documentary should be some semblance of real life, or can a documentary be allowed to construct itself? And I think their decisions are obvious and in your face because they put in animation, because the choices are obvious. So I think that their strokes are broad enough to legitimize the ethical way that they made this, and it is entertaining.
It is entertaining. It's interesting to see how the camera affects different people in the story too. Like when Hannah's parents are talking to her, the mother is obviously very nervous about being on camera.
And apparently she's manic depressive.
And it affects the way that she talks. You can tell that they coached her, and these are not, you know, this is not a natural conversation. It's obvious to me that it's not a natural conversation because she's very stagey.
Yeah,
you know. Some of these people are very good at it. The basketball player, what's his name?
Colin?
Colin's father, the Elvis imitator. He's
his father's an Elvis imitator.
Yeah, that's great, and he's
he wants him to be would like his son to be an Elvis imitator or a great athlete, which is all that really matters.
And he was a great athlete also. So
right, but isn't there some semblance of truth inside of that story, regardless of how it's put together?
Yeah.
Isn't there
I'm not saying there isn't.
Okay,
and he comes off as very natural, and obviously in front of the camera. But when you see a real person like Hannah's mother, I get uncomfortable. I feel like this is being phonied up. And another thing is some of these situations like where Jake is Jake the nerd kid?
Yeah, Jake is the nerd.
The nerd kid. Okay.
Skin, yeah.
He's hanging out with his girlfriend. She gets a text message from this other guy to meet her at the pool. The next scene, you see them skinny dipping together and making out in the pool. The next scene, you see her lying to him about having done it. What? Obviously, you know, the kid knows that it happened because the whole thing is scripted.